Namaste, Jai Hind and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. Just last week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, during his visit to the southern states of Bharat, visited the island union territory of Lakshadweep and lauded the stunning beauty of the islands there. He even shared his snorkeling experience and appealed to people to visit Lakshadweep. Prime Minister's visit soon stirred a massive debate on internet and a conversation with some comparing it to the island nation of Maldives. As the debate escalated, Maldives officials insulted Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also resorted to hurling anti-India remarks on social media. The comments drawing massive criticism, with Bharatiya cancelling Maldives trips. From celebrities to sports personalities, Bharatiya came out in one voice against anti-India, anti-Prime Minister Narendra Modi tirade. The Maldives government going into damage control mode, suspending 3 ministers over their derogatory remarks against Bharat and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's take you through the comments that came from Maldivian ministers now suspended, and that's what escalated this whole matter altogether. First one is Zahid Ramiz. He's been a member of the Progressive Party of Maldives, Progressive Party Senate since January 2013. He, via social media, asked, how are the beaches so clean, and said permanent smell in the rooms will be the biggest downfall. Malsha Sharif, a deputy minister at the Maldives Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Information and Art, has been suspended. Comments included saying, how is Bharat a state of emergency just like their own opposition party? Mariam Shuna, who is also now suspended, called Prime Minister Narendra Modi a clown and a puppet of Israel. Abdullah Mazhoom Majid said he wishes success for Bharat's tourism. Targeting the Maldives so explicitly isn't diplomatic, and went on to mock open defecation. He has also been suspended. Now, after the outrageous remarks, Bharatiya have boycotted their trip to Maldives, but politicking continues, especially by the opposition, the INDI alliance. Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray Sena, and she's an MP, and she said, wonder if our foreign policy and international relations will be decided by social media, influencers, film actors or ministers in charge and the government. Lavanya Jain, Congress leader, said the destruction of Lakshadweep under Prafulla Koda Patel, the culture, way of life, source of income and now language is being wiped out by Prime Minister and his cabinet. Today, while it is being promoted as a tourist destination, one must also know how the BJP has been bulldozing the people living in these islands. Abhishek Manu Singhvi of the Congress party said that the hullabaloo of right-wing trolls over Lakshadweep versus Maldives has further pushed the close ally away. Modi ji begins the damage, Bhaks amplify it, go get some wisdom. Congress's Manish Tiwari calling for reality check of Bharat's influence in South Asia, as he claims that nations like Maldives, Sri Lanka are now under China's influence, and highlighted China's strategic expansion in Nepal and Bhutan. Maldives President Mohammad Muizzu is on a visit to China at this point and is expected to ink key deals. But Bharat has exposed Muizzu and his pro-China policy. Government sources via Security Affairs editor Manoj Kumar Gupta exposed Muizzu's government as anti-India. Mohammad Muizzu first visited Turkey and then China, say sources to CNN News18. Turkey, a base for Kashmiri separatists, anti-India voice, and of course, part of that axis that is baying for the union or the coming together of the UAE, Bharat, Saudi Arabia, America, and of course Israel and some of the other nations, including Egypt. China eyeing areas of Bharat's interest: Sri Lanka, Nepal, Maldives, this entire region with their string of pearls strategy. Traditional practice to visit Bharat, but no plans made yet. For the last 60 years, that's been the practice. Provocation suggests Muizzu open to hostile ties with Bharat. Muizzu government pleasing Muslim nations and China to gain more. Bharat keeping a very close watch of the developments and analyzing them. The India-Maldives alliance friendship has been nearly 6 decades, and that is required to maintain mutual respect. But this has been lost. Maldives officials' remarks don't reflect the tone of foreign policy, is what the message has come from the Maldivians. But is that convincing enough, especially when the entire campaign has had a tone which is anti-Bharat? Here's how Bharat has always gone the extra mile to help Maldives, and always stood with it like a big brother, elder brother. Maldives was the first recipient of vaccines during the second COVID wave, gifted medicines to deal with COVID as a goodwill gesture, no price exacted, evacuated Maldivians from Wuhan during the pandemic, permitted travel of seriously ill Maldivians to Kochi during the pandemic, extended 8 line of credit projects worth $1.3 billion, helped Maldives expand its international airport, key projects, and also their entire policing exercise. All of this, Bharat has been a part of it. But this Bharat baiter, that is Maldives, has it become bait already? That's the larger question, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, Moto.
Let's go across to our guest this evening, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, Dr. Monica Verma, Foreign Affairs Expert, Professor Brahma Chalani, Strategic Affairs Expert, and Saira Shah Haleen, author and activist. Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you very, very much to everybody for joining us here. Now, Brahma Chalani ji, let me start with you, please. Has Bharat taken the right stand here? Is the government reacting to social media hullabaloo? Did the Bharat government react first? Or did the Maldivians take the social media bait first?
The Maldivian attacks on India were completely unprovoked. When Prime Minister Modi went to Lakshadweep, he didn't even utter the word Maldives. He sought to promote Lakshadweep as a tourist destination for Indian travelers. But that sparked jealousy in certain quarters in the Maldives, leading to these attacks. Now, think of it, the way India has been attacked. India was compared with cow dung, and Modi was called a clown, terrorist, and a puppet of Israel by members of the Maldivian cabinet. Normally, you don't even hear such terms being used against an adversary nation. But here, the Maldivian ministers were attacking a friendly India. India is not just Maldives' closest neighbor. It's the largest provider of aid to the Maldives and also the source of much of the tourism that drives the Maldivian economy. And what has the Maldivian president done in response? First, he has maintained silence on the attacks on India. He has merely suspended the 3 ministers. Cabinet is not a high school. What is meant by suspension? The 3 remain part of the cabinet. He has ignored calls at home to dismiss the 3. And these attacks on India came on the eve of his departure for Beijing. 2 of the 3 ministers who attacked India, and both are women, happen to be the president's messengers. They are known to be his mouthpieces. So it opens the question whether the attacks on India were made to create some sort of an environment for the president's trip to Beijing so that he could get what he wanted from the Chinese.
But does that also mean that they have fallen into this debt trap diplomacy, Sushant Sareen ji? Are they bait already?
Anand, the debt trap bit is a different matter altogether. That's standard Chinese practice. That's been going on. They've saddled the Maldives with some white elephant projects. So that is a separate thing. I think what we also need to look at is the basic fundamental character of this new regime which has come into power in Maldives. It never made any bones about the fact that most of them are lean towards a radical form of Islam. They might be wearing suits and stuff, but that does not mean that you're not an Islamist. Even Hamas wears suits and travel around in fancy Western aircraft, but that does not mean they're not terrorists. So one is that factor, that the ideological makeup of the people who are in power. So it comes as no surprise, in a government which has come into power with the central pillar of India out and abusing India, and the president leading that charge and his primary backer, a former president, backing that particular platform. What do you expect these guys to be saying? They would have, if it was not Lakshadweep wasn't the trigger, it would have been something else. So they would have said something like this. We should have expected it. I have a certain problem with this whole, India has been always so helpful. India has always been so nice. Uh, my point is that you can be as nice as whatever you want to be, but if you are not somebody who's ready to wield the big stick, and if people you are nice to do not fear you, then your diplomacy is a failure to some extent. Because ultimately, you have these piddly little fellows like these ministers who nobody even knows of, who matter nothing to nobody, coming out and, trying to roar like a tiger. It happens only because, they think they can get away with it. So until and unless there are certain consequences that will visit some of these characters, even the country, to say that, look, this is just a small bunch of people. Indians have this great habit, Anand, of trying to act as advocates for other people. The guys who have been elected with the majority of the support of the people of Maldives, 54%. Now, you say that this is a small bunch of people. I don't know what is your conception of majority then. That means the bulk of the people of that country are actually targeting India, hate India. And if you hate us, then I think we should be able to exercise certain, leverages or visit certain consequences on these kind of regimes. I don't see, why you should simply be always trying to be the nice guy. Okay, fine, you've abused us, we'll give you a new airport. Okay, fine, you've expelled our people or destroyed something, we'll build you a new hospital. Why? Okay, fine, we'll give you free medical tourism into India. Why? You fall sick, you go 5,000 kilometers away, why should you come 700 kilometers away? If you die on the way, just too bad for you.
So you're saying that we tend to allow certain nations to take advantage of our humanitarian approach or a humanities-driven approach for their own strategic and diplomatic dividends, whereas they harbor no love lost for us. Saira Shah Halim?
Yeah, hi, good evening. So firstly, the comments were on a disparaging note. I agree the comments were not kind to the PM because he is promoting Lakshadweep and he was well within his right to promote any island of the country. Now, coming to tourism sector, I think the tourism should be developed in a sensible way and not in a sensational way. I saw a portal that's gone on record by saying that we have these many cancellations. But this is only going to help this portal for a limited amount of time. However, when this whole controversy dies down, people will again go on Make My Trip or some other portal to book trips. So I feel we need to be sensible about it because Maldives and India have had a very long association of diplomatic ties. I mean, India has helped out Maldives. We've seen the largest number of tourism turnouts in Maldives itself. So right now, at this crucial point, when China is looking at these territories like a hawk, it will really serve no purpose if we further deteriorate diplomatic ties. And I do not think that what this travel portal is doing and other so-called jingoistic people of a particular political party are doing. I don't think it's being advocated or espoused by the Bharatiya Janata Party or the government in power. I mean, I haven't seen any official statement from the MEA that says, okay, we ought to boycott Maldives, right? So now these portals will be doing more harm than good if they go on about, this whole cancel Maldives, this whole jingoism that is going on because the diplomatic ties and Maldives is a neighbor, it's a neighboring country. So we need to understand we need to build very strong diplomatic ties with all our neighbors because we will give, an open hand to China, so that they can leverage on deteriorating ties with any other country, with India. So it's time that we need to accept the apology. We need to accept the apology because those ministers who made that disparaging comment have been suspended from the post. And they've already given out an official statement that this does not espouse the official
No, but
statement of
that
the
also
Maldives government.
tends to be a lot of people would look at it. There is, a lot of people would agree with what you're trying to say. But diplomatic niceties or diplomatic gain cannot be this one juxtaposed against a big loss or insult to the country or somebody who has such a lopsided view about you as a nation. What is Maldives today? Not even a tiny speck there in the ocean, and they're getting lost. So they need nations like Bharat who will treat them as an equal, despite the fact that we don't need to. I'm just saying there will be a thought process here. So whatever China is doing, China kuch karega isliye hame karna hai, that's not the case. The point is
No.
but the point is that yes, they are in this region, so they don't they know what Bharat is or who Bharat is, or do they think that they can get away with this kind of language and this kind of behavior with us? Who do they think they are as a nation? They are desperately looking for going with a begging bowl to the world, saying that we are sinking, help us. We don't have money, help us. We don't have water, help us. We don't have vaccines, help us. Everywhere it is help us. Plus they are sending the maximum number of cadre to Maldives, to the ISIS. So there is a huge hub of radicalization, and Maldives is a big problem. These are reports. I am not saying it myself. These are reports. Before I go across to Monica Verma, this is what intel sources are telling us. More news coming through. Muizu is under radical groups' pressure. Now this is the word that's coming to, that he is under pressure from fundamentalists and radical groups to speak against Bharat. Largest number of ISIS cadre, Daesh cadre are from Maldives. Prisons in Maldives have become a safe haven for radicalization. There is a Maldives NGO report that says 600 to 700 Maldivians have joined the ISIS, and that to Daesh in Syria. Some leaders are funded by radical groups, drug dealers. Money is flushed by China and ISI, and they are forming sleeper cells. Maldives jails are becoming a safe haven for these kind of radical elements. Those jailed are approached by drug dealers and terror outfits. The convicts are approached to promote religious activism, read fundamentalism. The rise as radical Muslim nation, provocations will continue. That is what the assessment is. Karthik Chopra, a lawyer, is watching this, Monica Verma, and he's just shared this one. The US government designating financial leaders and financial facilitators of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and that list has members affiliated and people who live in Maldives, in their second largest city of Adu city, that had attempted to carry out terror plots since at least 2018, including attacks utilizing IEDs and unmanned aerial vehicles. So Maldives cannot cloak itself in any glory for them to sit and say what they have said. Monica Verma.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, are we forgetting the attack on Indian embassy event that took place last year during the Yoga Day? There was this event taking place at a stadium where the Islamists they just barged in and they started doing a lot of violence around in that vicinity. Also, if you look at the kind of social media content that is available on X since the last 2 days that this controversy has erupted, they are full of cow giants. They are saying that Indians, they worship cows. It's very similar to the kind of attack that is launched from Turkey. It's also similar to the kind of attack which ISI bots do from Pakistan. So there is no doubt there that what is happening in Maldives is basically a problem which has got two aspects. One is hardcore Islamization and radicalization, and second is a very problematic thing is that they are tilting their foreign policy towards China. So when Saira says that if we will not be nice to them, they may fall into Beijing's zone of influence. No, that's not true. Actually, the truth is that this person who is he was elected on a very, very strong anti-India plank. He was not the original proponent, but definitely a very, very strong supporter of the India out policy. And he was literally wearing T-shirts and, taking rounds on the streets of Maldives and saying that we do not want any Indian military presence in Maldives. But what about that military presence? It's a very, very benign presence. 80-odd military personnel are present in Maldives, and they are operating gifts that has been given by India to Maldives for their own good. They are doing very, very charitable things such as doing surveillance of their
all of that aside,
economic zone.
All of that aside, the other point is that this nation, Professor Brahmachalani, is making so much of noise because it's being propped up. That's where the diplomatic aspect comes to the fore, where the opposition is baiting the current government also, saying diplomatically, how strong are you in this region? If this string of pearls that the PLA is looking at, aren't you aware of it? Don't you see what they're doing in Djibouti, what they're doing with Sri Lanka, what they're doing with Nepal, what they're doing with Myanmar, Bhutan, these regions? It's all around Bharat only. So, what have we achieved? And one of the criticisms coming towards the government is that, are you spoiling equations with everybody?
Well, first, the Maldives may have a tiny population. It has only 5.5 lakh population. But the Maldivian islands are of key importance to Indian security, given that the Maldives sits astride critical sea lanes through which much of India's shipping passes. However, it's important to note that the Maldives cannot do without India. India is of critical importance to Maldives' economy and to Maldives' security. Without India, how can the Maldivian economy sustain itself? But the problem is larger, as Sushant pointed out correctly, that Islamist forces are on the rise in the Maldives. This is the country that, according to its own official admission, it supplied the world's highest per capita number of foreign fighters to terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq when there was a civil war in Syria and ISIS was spreading in Syria and Iraq. The largest number of foreign fighters in per capita terms came from the Maldives. And the new Maldivian government is Islamist leaning because it has pandered to the Islamist forces at home. The entire composition of the cabinet is largely Islamist leaning. It's a government that is openly anti-India. As one of your other panelists pointed out correctly, that President Yusu was elected on an India Out campaign.
Yeah.
He was wearing a red T-shirt with, on which was written "India Out." That was his campaign demand. And we only have 77 soldiers in the Maldives, largely to operate 2 Dhruv helicopters and 1 Dornier aircraft. And the 2 helicopters and the Dornier aircraft are there to reach people on distant islands who need medical assistance or in times of any kind of natural disaster. So given what India is confronting now, the choice for India is a difficult one. On one hand, we cannot forget the kind of insults that have been heaped on India and on the Indian Prime Minister. On the other hand, we cannot forget the strategic importance of the Maldives. So we have to be very careful in how we respond. We have responded quite firmly to the insults by summoning the Maldivian High Commissioner, by making it clear to Mali that India will not easily forget these insults, and yet we are constrained by what we can do in response.
But isn't it ironical that a PLA that is being accused of trampling on Uyghurs and also the entire Muslim identity of East Turkestan or Xinjiang, Sushant Sarinji, what Professor Brahmachalani says, a fundamentally Islamist nation is actually not saying anything there, but has a problem with Bharat. Is this then politics? Is this economics? What would you say this is?
Yeah, so Anand, I'll just come to your question. There's, I think, a fact check which I must do to what Saira said. There has been no apology from the Maldives, no official apology. They say that they've suspended 3 ministers. I don't know how long. What does a suspension mean in the Maldives? And to say that, now that they've apologized, let's move on. I don't think that's good enough, because it's like saying that, okay, fine, Pakistan condemned 26/11 attacks and they shed some crocodile tears, so we should move on. We should not hold their feet to fire. One is that I think we need to be very clear on that particular count. The second is on your question, Anand. I think it's very clear, and it's not just for Maldives. I think it's all countries around the world, who are so terrified of China. They feel that they can't even say anything, even on an egregious violation. In fact, it's actually a kind of a genocide which is taking place of Muslims in China. None of the Muslim countries will ever open their mouth on it. So this is exactly what I meant when I said that, look, yes, you should be a benign neighbor. Yes, you should be a helpful neighbor. There is absolutely no reason why you should not do everything to help your neighbors to the extent it is possible. But it should also not be treated like a pushover. That you can stand up on your two legs and just, yell out and abuse us and hurl these racist tropes at us and all sorts of other things. That's not acceptable to me as an Indian anymore. That's not acceptable to me as a Hindu anymore. I'm not going to take it from anybody. And certainly not from, a country like Maldives or those clowns out there. I'm not going to take it, right? I will, and India has always given them, regardless of the size of a country, India has given them all the due deference, which is, which is their due as an independent sovereign country. Because there are 500,000 people, less than the locality I live in, does not mean that I don't treat them as a sovereign country. And yet, it also means that they need to do the same with me. Secondly, I think Professor Chelani raises a very good point. That yes, Maldives is certainly strategically important. But then India also is very strategically important for the Maldives. If you cannot survive without me, and this is the second point of quibble with Saira, where she said, look, we are all neighbors. This is a standard, thing which everybody says. We are all, well, I am their neighbor, but so are they my neighbor. If there is certain neighborly conduct which I am expected to observe, then surely that same neighborly conduct is something which the other guy is expected to observe towards me. How can it be only a one-way street? It's the same thing, Anand. It's always said that India needs to do this because they are our neighbor. Isn't Nepal my neighbor? Isn't Bangladesh my neighbor? Isn't Pakistan my neighbor? Should they not be also reciprocating to what my requirements are? So certainly, I say let's have good neighborly relations, but it has to be a two-way street. And finally, this constant carping sounds which we are hearing, that look, relations are going bad with different countries. Let's go back to the 1980s. What were our relations with Pakistan? Okay, Pakistan has always been in the doghouse. Let's talk about Nepal. You had a king in Nepal who was unabashedly hostile towards us, who was always trying to play games against us. You had a dictatorship in Bangladesh, which was sponsoring all kinds of trouble in India, which was always, hobnobbing with the Pakistanis to create trouble in India. You had Sri Lanka, and we know what happened in Sri Lanka. So when we talk about, there were the old days when everything was so hunky-dory between us and our neighbors. It wasn't even then. So there is a certain structural issues which will come in as far as diplomacy is concerned. But there is a certain amount of diplomatic modicum of behavior which all the countries need to observe towards India, just as India should towards them. And we must learn to carry a big stick. There is no other way that you practice diplomacy. Diplomacy of being always the nice guy is not diplomacy.
No, you can't be the nice guy, but you've got to be the strong guy who will keep you in line and keep you in check. Saira Shah Halim, would you want to respond to Sushant Sareen?
Yeah.
And the other aspect is, why, yes, the opposition wants to criticize and you want to take a pot shot at PM Narendra Modi, at the government, etc. But somewhere does that then blur between baiting the government and also or giving the enemy a handle?
Yeah, so this is answering Mr. Sareen's question about the radicalization of Maldives. Let us not forget that Islamic nations have honored PM Modi with highest civilians award, be it UAE, be it Bahrain, be it Saudi Arabia. You look at the GCC countries, all of them have honored PM Modi. So let's not forget that. So let's not make it into a Hindu-Muslim issue yet again, just because Maldives happens to be a Muslim country where the number of citizens happen to practice Islam. Because let me finish. Yeah, because here we need to understand that when you're talking about tourism, And I think probably this will become a talking point because it is time, yes. Because I feel really sad when I go to, the probably the pre-Soviet countries. I mean, look at the infrastructure. They're tourism friendly. And here, for some reason, we have not really concentrated on our tourism. Perhaps we can use this opportunity to better our tourism. Foreigners should not feel apprehensive. You look at, what you call tourism advice. Say, people say that you need to be alert for, theft and armed robbery, protest. You read all these, advisories on the net. So I feel India can also be a big tourism hub if we truly appreciate what we have. If we develop Manipur or develop other states that do virgin, places and they've not really been touched upon, we can use it as an opportunity to better ourselves, but not at the expense of this boycott or cancel culture, because this cancel culture is
this boycott or cancel culture was initiated by the Maldivians. It was the Maldivian government voices which said it. Bharat never said that we want to boycott Maldives. No.
Yeah. So
who ran? No. Are the Indian elections or elections in our country being run saying that one more person is going to be out of this one or this one? No, that's not what is the case. He won the election saying that I will push India out. He wore a T-shirt like that. That's his stated position. The current president. We've got another interesting development. I know Sushantji wanted to respond to her. Ali Azim has now just tweeted, "We the Democrats are dedicated to upholding the stability of the nation's foreign policy and preventing the isolation of any neighboring country. Are you willing to take all necessary steps to remove President Muizu from power? Is the MDP Secretariat prepared to initiate a vote of no confidence?" Parliamentary Minority Leader in Maldives, Ali Azim, has now actually called for step to remove Maldives President, including vote of no confidence in the aftermath of this entire fiasco. Now, this is no small statement. There is going to be a political upheaval and turmoil in Maldives because what has happened. We can't ignore that. Sushantji, and then Monica Verma.
Yeah, just a small point to what Saira was saying. If you go to Italy, Saira, you are liable to get robbed out there as well. The amount of theft that happens in Italy is not even a fraction of what happens in India.
Yeah.
Every country has its problems.
Let's not compare apples and oranges because it's a totally different ball game. Yeah, you have to be careful in Europe. But people are not robbed in India as well. Let's be practical. Let's be practical.
Saira, you bring in issues, then when I respond to those issues, you say don't bring them in. You brought those issues in. I didn't.
Okay,
Number one.
Please carry on, Mr. Sareen. Please carry on. Yeah.
Please. On the other issue, I never took the name of UAE or Saudi Arabia. In fact, I've always said that UAE and Saudi Arabia have become beacons for the Islamic world with the kind of progressive politics that they are practicing. Where has anybody brought in the Hindu-Muslim issue? You are the one who is bringing it in. We never brought it in. But if there is a radical Islamic problem, if 0.01% of your or 0.1% of your population, 600 people joining ISIS out of 600,000 people population, is a huge number. It's like, you do the math in India, it will be something like 10 or 20, 100 million, no, 10 million people from India joining ISIS at the same level. So, keep that perspective in mind. We never took UAE's name or any other Islamic country's name. If they are the guys who are taking that and, launching off an attack.
If co-religiosity, sir, if co-religiosity has got to be the basis, then the first thing that they should do is, he should never be traveling to Beijing.
And
here, a million Uyghurs in internment and in concentration camps. More than 15,000 mosques have been now washed out of East Turkestan, have been razed down and converted to Shulab Shauchalaya and other public places of convenience. And this person is going there. If co-religiosity is the angle, ma'am, then they should never be going to China at all.
Okay.
So let's not bring the religion issue here. Here there is something else. Somebody is making somebody a puppet, and there is a strategic cost to it, and there is a diplomatic or an intent to it, devious intent to it. Why is this person falling for that trap? Is a question that needs to be asked.
Answering Mr. Sareen. we've had a beef with Canada already. Let's not forget that.
No. One second. America has a beef with more than 60 countries across the world. America has a beef with more than 60 countries across the world. So are you trying to say that a nation should not stand up for its sovereignty? A nation should not stand up for its sovereignty, its integrity, should bear insult just because you believe that you want. Ma'am, let's not go down that path. Let's not.
Maldives government had they said that
Anand,
yes,
I've run out of time. We will. Wait, yes. All right. 30 seconds, ma'am. Please understand this. When there was an exercise of majoritarianism with certain nations, when other nations want to guard their sovereignty, at that time it is justified, and Bharat stands up for its sovereignty, its integrity, and its own identity. At that time, you have a problem. Nations cannot steamroll a nation that is 4%, 20% of the world's population, 4% of the world's landmass, and the 5th largest economy in the world. Let's say that very clearly. You behave with us. That's something which everybody needs to know. That's what I'm saying. I have to wind up. We will carry this forward. We will take this forward very soon. Thank you very, very much. Stay with us on the way. When we are back, it's Sadhvi Ritambra, founder of Durga Vahini, who's been working for 3 decades with geriatrics and also with children through Vatsalya and Vrindavan. But she was at the forefront of the entire Ram Janmabhoomi movement. Stay with us.